and 3 and 2 and 1, and welcome back whenever you are in your life, in your business, and in the world to another Casas and Cashflow for this month. And I want to welcome Vianca to the show.
Thank you, Ms. Pino. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Casas and Cashflow.
Thank you for that. This time around, we are going to be talking about, because I find it quite important that people know the difference, and that is why buy new construction when you can build it. And this is a topic that I think that people love. People love to think about it and think about it and think about it, and they never pull the trigger. They never take action into actually going on that direction. So your decision to go with new construction and decide to build it, you are just one decision away, and that decision comes from you. And that's why we're doing this show today, because we want to touch upon some topics that we believe it could be and will be and are of great value to you. And let's just go right into business. But now, how do
business? Can I give you a little bit of a history here, a little bit of a story? I know you want to get into business. You see how you mentioned, oh, people think about it and delayed. I remembered when you and I started with this business, right? I was one of those people. I was one of those people that kept saying, but why do we need to build a home? Why do we need to build houses? Why single family houses? Why not duplexes? And why not multifamilies? And we went through all of this and the experience and the whole entire enchilada, like you always say.
Enchilada.
Right? And at the end, we came down to the nitty gritty. When we do new construction, whether you are a homeowner or an investor, what do we look at? What do we find?
Well, that's a great introduction, so thank you for that. And let's just go right into business. Why? Because you need to learn the differences and the specificities that I think that it will add value to your thought process, in the sense that once you know what you need to know, you are more equipped and educated to make the right decisions. And you touched upon something. What about why we didn't go into duplexes or multifamilies and all that? Well, that was not the path that we took. And it doesn't mean that if you watching right now, when you see this show, you want to go into duplexes or multifamily or hotels or storages, it's wrong. It might be right for you. It might be right for you because one thing, and that is the common denominator for everything.
I love that, yes.
Real estate is good in every way that you actually go about it. And I'm going to say this, and I want you to really allow that to sink in, and that is, real estate has existed forever, and as long as we have humans on earth, there is going to be real estate. And as long as there are humans and people are growing and procreating, we need more real estate. And then it comes to the actual topic, why new? People, and I always, of course, we're a big proponent of buying new. Very simple. New is new. Less maintenance, less problems, more updated. So let's say if you're buying a new home today, you're going to have a longer or bigger lifespan for that property, whether you live on it or whether you wanted to sell it or whether you're an investor, it doesn't matter. But the fact that the actual home is new, that's a huge perk right there, versus if you buy a house, an existing house in the market that would, in that case, would be considered either an old home, older home, or kind of like a resale. But now, there will be great advantages because new, yes, everything is new. But now let's talk a little bit about the numbers and why it will probably make more sense for a lot of people. And some people, this will say, well, I don't want to get into construction. That's your objection right there. And sometimes that attitude, that answer is more predicated on fear, doubts, and lack of education because you don't know how to go about it. And of course, the road from beginning to end might look very challenging. However, what are the advantages? Let's go right into it. The number one thing is when you buy new, you buy a market value. And I think we touched upon that briefly in all the previous shows. When you buy, let's say, a brand new home and you buy it, it's brand new. You're gonna go to the developer, you're gonna go to the builder, you're gonna go to the general contractor, to the real estate agent, whoever you're dealing with directly that has control of the property. And when you buy a market value, you buy a market value, meaning if you're buying a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and it costs $400,000, guess what? You're paying $400,000. But what happens when you go into the new, but you go through the process of actually building it? And there's two approaches here I want to share here. One, that you want to build it for you to live on it. That means like an owner, builder, like owner occupy, you will build it and you will be living in the house as your primary residence. That is one approach. Second approach is if you want to look at it more as a business venture for you, meaning you buy your land and you want to build a house because as an investor or aspiring developer, you want to resell it or keep it even for rental. That's the different approach. But now when you go in this dynamic of building it, you're going to have a different dynamic when it comes to the numbers. Yes, you might end up with a $400,000 home, yes, market value, but the cost to build it is going to be way less than that. Of course, if you do your numbers right and you know what you're doing, that's where education and confidence comes in. And I always say that the fact that you don't know the skill set or what exactly the steps, because this is a system, it's a process. Just like when you assemble a Lego, that's exactly how you build a home. And if, like I always said to some people, friend of mine, if you can count from 1 to 100, you can build a house. All right, you can build a house. Yes, you need to learn what it takes, but the point is that you can. It's a matter of a decision, and you say, you know what, I'm going to learn and I'm going to do what it takes. And you do that confidently. Now, when you buy, you get, like I said, market value. When you build at cost. Maybe the same house is going to cost you $250, $270, $300,000, even if it costs you $300,000. But if in reality, the actual market value is $400,000. So potentially, what profit do you have? But we're not going to talk about profit just yet, but equity. And when it comes to more equity, you have instant equity from the moment that you decide to go new. And that's a huge plus, because if you are a homeowner that you want to live on it, it will be a lot easier for you to refinance later and pay less for your home. Remember that if you are a homeowner, you're holding that property for 30 years and you're living on it, you're going to have to pay the 30-year mortgage. Now, question for you, would you be happier paying a mortgage on $400,000 or more paying a mortgage on $300,000 or $280 or $250 or $230? I'm sure the answer is very simple. What will you choose?
280, 210, 230,
whatever that number is.
But you know what? I love what you're saying, because what you're looking at and I'm gonna put a little bit of her hat, right? The way that she sees it, it's a long-term perspective.
Correct.
Exactly. You know, it's at the long run, right?
Exactly.
I remember in our beginnings, you always said, well, Vianca, I used to say, we were in Miami, and I used to say, well, there's no room to build here.
Right.
And then you say, well,
and expensive.
Yes, and expensive. And then she said, you know what? When there's demand, there's opportunities.
Absolutely.
And then what did you do? You traveled away from Miami to find those opportunities.
Correct.
And go ahead.
And you touched a great point.
Yes.
Going away. Sometimes in the area that you might be right now, in a super metropolitan area like in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, maybe Orlando, maybe Dallas, Texas, like place in New York, maybe finding a piece of land can even be very expensive when you can travel 50 miles out or 100 miles out like we did, right. You know, and then we find pieces of land that are super affordable and you can still sell and you can still have that equity. And that's super important. So I want you to consider that. Now, the number second, no, is that right?
The number second.
2. Well, number 2. Advantage of actually building new is something that most people don't talk about. Not even your accountant will tell you maybe. And by the way, I'm not giving financial or legal advice. This is an educational class for informational purposes, all right?
Based on our experience.
Thank you for that disclaimer. Love it. And that is, when you build new, there is something called cost segregation, because you are building the plumbing, the electrical, the roofing, the material, the drywall, all of that you can depreciate. Yes, even though you are creating something new, the IRS has certain laws, certain codes that when you sit down with your accountant, ask them, hey, what about, can you help me with the cost segregation? And there are companies, and we know them. So if you need help connecting with a company, we will do the referral. So you deal directly with them. We will do that out of no cost, zero. It will cost you nothing. We'll give you the link, and then you deal with them directly. But what happens when you do a cost segregation, which leads me to something else? Cost segregation allows you to take advantage of all these components, the HVAC, all the costs and the materials involved in energy efficient. Yeah. And then a certified company will certify you that and they will break it down as far as cost. And then you take that study to your accountant, and then your accountant can use that and will use that to your benefit, so you save money in taxes. So it becomes a fantastic, legal, appropriate, ethical advantage. Like I don't even know what to say. The word is not coming up, but you can use cost segregation as a tool. Oh, that's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. As a tool for you to take advantage of taxes and not having to pay. What does that mean? If you're able to keep paying out, let's say you're going to build this brand new and you're going to sell it. Well, you might end up having capital gains, which means if you made $100,000, $150,000, $120,000 in profit, you're going to have to pay a percentage of that, depending on what code are you in, or what level of percentage are you in personally, or married, or with your business. That's a conversation for accounting. But whatever, if you have a capital gain, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. What if using a cost segregation study, you reduce that you can legally document it, and instead of paying that money out, you can keep it and do it correctly, because you are taking advantage of the IRS rules through the right tool, which is the cost segregation. So number one, when you build new, more equity. Number two, more tax advantages. And number three, you want to touch upon that? Go ahead. More stability. Just so smart. More stability. Why more stability? Well, when an asset, in this case a single family home, because it has more equity and you are able to have advantages, technically I would say you probably are able to have more profits, and it makes the asset more stable. Stable in regards to what? For example, if you build new because you want to live on it, your asset is more stable in terms of finances, meaning you can go to a mortgage broker, and when the house is finished, you can do a rate and term refinance and stay living in the home. Because remember, if the house was $420, $430, whatever that market value, wherever you are in whichever area you're in, but you only used basically $250,000, just for example, for illustration purposes.
The cost to build.
Right. Let's say the cost to build, it was altogether you were in for $250, but the house, let's say, it was $400,000. You have equity, and that equity you can use it very simply as part of leverage in your behalf, to your advantage, to do a rate and term refinance. And you probably don't even have to, because there's going to be enough equity. Chances are you're not going to have to come out nothing out of pocket, because when you refinance your home on a rate and term refinance, if there is appropriate equity, closing costs are already built in and included into the new loan. That's huge for you, especially if you are a homeowner. So what you end up with, a brand new home that you already know have equity, that you can live on it, and you spend probably a third of what you would have spent if you buy still new but a market value. That is huge, especially when you look at 30 years out, 15 or 20 years. And another example, more stability when you're going to refinance, but in this case you want to do a cash out refinance, meaning you're going to refinance the property because it's already done, it's already built. And let's say you want to keep it, but you got plenty of equity. If you qualify for most standards, usually it's an 80% loan to value, between 70, 75, 80%. And that kind of like, sometimes it depends on your credit, let's say personal credit. But if you cash out, that means that, let's say you want to borrow an extra $20,000 or $30,000, still you're able to refinance, pay the initial loan, keep the 30 grand, for example. Maybe you can want to put a fence, maybe you want to buy furniture, maybe you want to give yourself a nice vacation, or maybe you want to go out and then buy another lot so you can build another home. So that way, you continue building wealth. You can do that. And the beautiful thing about that, and now it brings me back a little bit to the benefits of understanding how to use the IRS codes to your advantage, is that when you do a cash out refinance, you pay zero taxes on that for the most part. Why? Because you are getting a loan, meaning that you're getting a debt, and those 30 grand that you're going to spend are built in within the new loan that you got, which you still gotta pay. But the point is that the IRS will not penalize you as capital gain because it's a loan, a debt that you have and you're paying off through time. That's a great advantage. And the third, in the case of more stability, so you understand the concept of stability when you build new. If you rent the property, you can still cash out. You can either do a rate on term refinance or a cash out refinance. If you're planning to keep as an investor, let's say, or a second home, or, you're able to still do the same cash out refinance, but on top of that, you can rent. And that rental you can use is more, now we fall into the cash flow. If you got the right numbers, you can cash flow every month a little bit, a little drip, even if it's $100, $150, $200, but that is money. And when you compound that over time, now the property, it gives you by itself, organically, more profitability because it becomes an stable asset, especially if you have great tenants that are gonna be with you 3, 4, 5 years. And 3, 4, 5, 7 years could be a very nice turn of a real estate cycle where something happens, interest rates drops, people start buying, and all of a sudden the house that maybe you spent $250,000, $300,000 now is worth $450,000, $500,000. What do? You sell. or refinance again, cash out more money, keep it. Because if you're really interested, and this is one of the things that actually I'm going to switch a little bit to our website, VMR Homes. We want to teach people, and we are teaching people how to build wealth. We come from, and we have shared it before, we come from families that they had no money. So we have to learn how to make it work for us. And we're still in the process because we're building our legacy portfolio. And that takes time, discipline, consistency, and it's going to take time. So we have to be very clear. And if we are doing it, so can you. Just get together with the right people, get yourself connected with the right individuals that can help you build your own legacy portfolio. It's possible, it's doable. And I'm gonna say something, if you're in your 30s, don't waste that, because when you get to your 40s, you can be totally set and have a great portfolio of 10 plus homes or 20, whatever you decide. Even if you spend 2 years learning and then, make not a 2 or 3 or 5 year plan. Look at your life ahead in decades. And I'm gonna share this. This is something that endowed me recently as I was doing some self-realization and reflection on my own self, because my birthday was recently. And I said, nobody told me that I should actually think in decades instead of 3, 4, 5 years. And if you are in your 40s, well, I think you should take that conversation seriously with yourself, with your partner, with your family, whoever is important to you, that you feel and want, that you want to build something big. Have the conversation. And if you are in your 50s, stop wasting your time. Stop wasting your time, because retirement is not that far out anymore. And that's important because we gotta prepare for any health conditions, any situation. And it's better to deal with all of those things that we can control when you have something stable that we can rely on. And that stable something is real estate. So what would you say after this?
And when you speak in regards to stable, you also speak in regards to the numbers. What do we mean by the numbers? You got to do your market study. You got to find out what your location is. I remember that's exactly what you did. You visit different cities to find out exactly where was it that you were going to start building, counting on those numbers. So when we mention numbers, it's a stability.
Correct. And look, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go crazy about spending 3 years doing research. No, sometimes it's a decision, commitment, discipline, education, and action. And action can mean making the decision to say, you know what, starting today, I'm going to start learning this new skill set. And I'm going to build my portfolio of real estate for my retirement to inherit to my kids. Remember, if you inherit your kids 20 homes, they will forever remember you. Or your community or your nonprofit. For real. Why? Because you have something of value. See, you put your grain of salt or sand or blocks in this earth, and for that you're going to be remembered. And this is not about ego, this is not about fame either, or significant for you to feel, like to blow up your ego. It's about actually creating actual value through real estate in a way that can perpetuate, not only survive you, but even all the generations behind us. And that's why we love real estate, and that's why we love new construction, and that's why we took the time today to focus and narrow in more, like between the difference between new construction, buying new construction versus building new construction. And we hope that you have gotten a lot of value out of this. As you can see in the screen, this is our Pinot model. Our signature model is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. And well, going into details, that's going to be another show. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you, Vianca.
Thank you, Ms. Pino. And remember to create assets so you create cash flow.
That's right. Equity, tax advantages, stability, and your legacy for the rest of your life. Thank you for watching. I'm going to get up now because I need to go and close the broadcasting, but I really wish you all a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you again in another Casas and Cashflow. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone.